For the third annual Gala Dinner, the Association of Zambians in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia will this year host the third annual Gala Dinner on August 24th, 2024. There will be lots of exciting entertainment and we're expecting high-profile special guests. Be sure to stay glued to AZDMV Facebook page for more information. Save the date.
Hi everybody, welcome to our special feature. Today is an amazing day. Please tell a friend that ZBTR TV is live. That's the link down there. You can follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X, which used to be Twitter. Just search for ZBTR TV and you'll be able to follow us. Remember, for those on YouTube, to click notifications so that every time we go live, you are able to follow us. I trust that you guys are having a great week and having a great day. Those two adverts you saw me run, our DMV, that's what? DMV, that's Virginia, Maryland, and DC area. They are having their annual third gala. It's coming up in August. The details are in that. All right. So today, I stumbled into my sister, an amazing lady, and I said to her, you know what, you can't just come to the US. She's based in England or United Kingdom, Britain, whichever one you prefer. And I said, let's have a conversation because she's just an amazing lady. So she agreed. And today we are going to be talking to a lady, a woman, a mother, a minister, a mother-in-law, an author. She's written 2 books, all grown up, and the other one is Leads Cracking Your Glass Ceiling. She's also the founder of Life with Leah. Welcome, Miss Leah. Miss Leah, welcome.
Thank you. I feel at home. Every time we chat, I feel at home.
You feel at home.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear. How's my brother?
He is well. He's doing well. We are adjusting to how it first began. So it was 2. Now it is 2 again. So
it's 2 again.
We are adjusting.
You're going back to the beginning, like
remembering where it all started.
Remembering where it all
to remember.
Yeah. Don't forget the beginnings.
Yeah.
So everybody, I told Miss Leah, let's have an unscripted conversation. Let's have a talk about what is going on, okay? And I'm calling this a conversation with Leah, and we're going to talk about family life. I'm just going to throw questions at her about family life from different angles and perspectives, and then she's ready. She's geared for this. All right. The first question that I want to ask you, like in my introductions, I said you are a wife. You guys have been married for how long?
We're entering our 30th year.
30th year. That's not a small thing. And you have two girls, both are married now, so you are in-laws. All right.
We are in loves,
so,
is what I call my
in
son.
loves.
In loves.
In loves. I like that. I need to get ready for that. I'm not yet there. So 30 years of marriage. My first question to you, Miss Leah, is should a husband date his wife? If so, how does that really look like? I mean, you live together with your wife, and what's a date like between a husband and a wife?
So the thing is, I need to prefix this, when people see 30 years, they think it's experience. But it's not the number of years that you've been married that matters. It's the quality in the number of years. And the other angle I look at is there's an Anglo-Saxon way of thinking what date looks like. Because we've read the magazines, watched the romantic movies. So especially for us women, we expect that of our husbands. But I would say what works for you. What works for you? And it's both of you listening to each other. If the dates, going out, getting dressed, going to dinner is what you need, then that's important to you. Then I think both of us should listen to each other. So for example, me and my husband, we work from different continents, different time zones.
Oh, wow.
At the moment. So we make it a point to always be on FaceTime from the time we finish work to the time we go to bed, whichever one goes. I consider that a date. I don't have the chance or the luxury to potentially go for a meal. If we do get together, we do go for a meal. But I think dating shouldn't be about the Instagram post or the social media post. It is about the connection. And what that connection looks like depends on the couple, I think.
So it varies from couple to couple. There are circumstances, there are work schedules, and all those things. Like you said, you and your husband live in different parts of the world. And, how does a date look for Miss Leah and her husband? I think, don't you think the other problem is that we tend to look from others and say, he's doing that, why aren't you doing that?
Yeah, I used to say to my husband, other people's husbands. And he'd say to me, Leah, you're not married to other people's husbands. And it used to really annoy me, but it is true, And I always say when I speak, I love social media, so I'm not knocking social media, but sometimes what we post on social media is not real. We filter. So that's my proposed best that I put. So you then look at your perceived worst in your family and compare it to a proposed best. It's not reality. That's why I come back to saying, what is it that makes you guys tick, I think? And it also depends on the budget. It depends on the circumstances. So you cannot be comparison. It's what you guys, going back to the beginning, what brought you together and making that work would be my advice.
Okay. So talking about family life, this is based on family life, and I'm going to base it on the African context. To what extent can in-laws have a say about?
Gosh, I'm going to be brutal. I think they have no business in your marriage.
Okay.
They have no business unless you seek it, unless you seek counsel, unless you want their voice, unless you want their guidance. They have no business in your marriage. I mean, biblically, it says you leave and cleave.
Yes.
You leave and cleave. So what, for me, it might sound countercultural, and people might think because I've lived abroad for a long time, maybe it was God's grace saying this woman might not cope. But I truly believe the fundamental tension in marriages is the meddling of in-laws. Sister-in-law, brother-in-law, mother-in-law, father-in-law, we love them, we respect them, but they have no business in your marriage. Full stop. Tell them I said that.
No, they'll listen. They're hearing for themselves. So should they even ask why you're not having kids? For those that have got challenges?
It's none of their business. Absolutely. I used to be asked why I didn't have any sons. I'm like, do you even understand biology? Now, this wasn't my family, but just generally people will ask you, oh, you must give him a son. You're like, I don't have a Y chromosome. So if you understand the biology, it's got nothing to do with me. But I just think that even the question of why you're not having children is quite insensitive, because you don't know. You don't know what's going on in people's family. So I can't say it strongly enough. They have no business unless they are asked for counsel or for guidance.
We living in the diaspora. A lot of us, the diaspora has evolved, has progressed, and our numbers outside, those of us living away from home, has grown. And like you've raised your kids in England, and a lot of us are raising our kids in Australia, in the United States, in wherever we are. Your kids, when they were getting ready to get married, how did they navigate that? Who was the first person they told that they had found? I don't even know what phrase to use. They had found a guy, a man, a boyfriend. How did that go? Help somebody out there.
So I never asked for permission, but I don't think they'll mind me saying it. So my youngest daughter got married. She's 22 now. She got married first.
Okay.
And my oldest daughter got married 16 months after her. So it was very tight, very pressured in a short time. I found the younger one. She brought somebody home when she was 16.
Oh, okay.
And she's a worship leader, loves the Lord. He's a drummer, so I don't know what happens in these churches. The drummer is drumming, looks at the girl, and she said to us, "If you guys feel it's too early, then I'm just going to follow what you guys are following." But never been there before. I grew up in a place where I was told you can't have boyfriends. Full stop. You have a boyfriend,
Did you say she brought him home?
She told me about it.
Okay.
She told me about it. And she said, we're not dating, but I want to ask your permission if we could go, we could explore a relationship. And I think for us, it was fear, because I didn't understand what a Gen Z relationship looks like, And if I'm really honest, I wanted to say no, let's wait. But I didn't even know, what am I waiting for? What is appropriate? And then when I looked at myself, I thought at 16 I did like a little boy, and I hid it from my parents. So we took a decision. We said, let's navigate and help her navigate the journey. If I'm honest, I was more fearful about what people would say rather than helping my daughter navigate the charted waters of relationship. So we embraced him. We love him. He's 6 foot something ginger. You can't hide him. So if he's in the house, people come. They're like, "Ngoy, what's he doing here?"
Yeah, so I've seen the pictures.
I had to grow a tough skin and help my daughter navigate relationship, hold her hand through it. And she got married. My fear was, what if they break up? Then I have to bring another one. But that's normal. Isn't it normal of relationships? And so I'm glad my husband cautioned me to taking the hard line, because what we have had is a beautiful journey from when they were 16 to now that they're married, our voice, with our guidance, and the other side as well. We met with the parents and we said we need to kind of help and support them as they go down this journey. So we spoke with one voice.
Wow. I like the phrase you've used. I need to seek your permission. African homes can be very
hardline.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So I think the important thing that you have said is the fear. The fear plays a very big role, especially about perceptions from outside the home. And how did you handle that? Did people get to say things or ask questions or make comments?
Well, the very people who made comments now said, "Oh my goodness, the children are married, we're happy." And so if you rely on other people's timetable, you will never walk the journey and the purpose that God has given you. So the same people who said, "Oh, this is too young," are now going, "Oh, it's really wonderful that she's married. So I think it's what works for you.
Okay.
People have made comments. People will always make comments. People will make comments about this conversation. But if you know your truth, if you know what you are saying in terms of what is true and what works for you, with a foundation, for me, my foundation was my faith. I'd be like, God help me. I don't know. And the reason why I didn't know is because it never happened to me. Culturally, we're taught to hide our boyfriend. So I hid my husband until the tumbale came. Then it was accepted. So nobody actually teaches you what happens behind in terms of the dating.
I like that. I like that.
So I had to learn. I was learning what it looks like while I'm supporting my daughter. To go across that journey. And it was harder. And I believe because I'm a teacher as well, God allowed me to do that because the younger one went first. I think it would have been easier if the older one had gone first. So we journeyed that. And I have people coming to me asking me, how did you do it? How did you do it? I had no one to look up to. There was nobody who'd done it before me. I was also fearful, and that kind of cultural fear. How am I going to tell people that my 16-year-old is broke? 16 is too young. By whose standards? If we look at ourselves, we were running around behind our parents back at 16 with no guidance, like headless chickens. Why not speak guidance into your children? I'm not advocating for children to bring. By the way, please don't come and say yes. No, I'm just saying.
She said it's okay for them to have boyfriends.
So Tantilia said no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when it happened to me, I navigated it well.
So did you are both Zambians, okay? So how did that component of the traditional aspect of, you mentioned that you and how we do it in Zambia. The people come, Shimukombe comes home, they bring the tumbale, then they announce that how did you guys navigate that?
So the other thing, I'm writing a third book, and it's called Do You Know Who I Am? And in that, I'm talking about the tension between the cultures that we are in. So not just geographical cultures, but generational cultures, right? So the first thing that I talk about is we need to understand that the culture that I had when I was growing up is not the culture that I have in my home.
Yes.
However much we like to think we're Zambians, your culture here, if you're in the diaspora, is slightly diluted. Even if you're back home, your culture is different from your parents' culture because you're a different generation. So I raise my children Zambian as much as I can, but I'm very aware that they also have a British culture connotation to them. So I asked them what they wanted to do.
Okay.
For example, I feel like kitchen parties are for me. It's me that wants to show off to people. When you say Chilanga Mlilo, you're trying to show him what he's going to eat. But 90% the kid doesn't know what tente is. So I had to look at all those cultures and say, what's the purpose of these cultures? And then I presented them and said, this is what we do. What do you want? Because the wedding is yours.
Yeah.
What do you want? So she said, I want a bridal shower. I said, okay, I'll do a bridal shower for you. Because I wanted to put them in the center rather than it be about me. Right? Both said we want everything. So we did the whole shebang. But in moving every step, it had to be, what do you want for your wedding?
Interesting. All right. All right.
If they said to me, we don't want Chilanga Mlilo, I wouldn't have done it. It's not my wedding.
Yeah, that's very true. Interesting. I've never heard that before, I need to confess.
Have you not?
No, I mean, where the parent goes to the kids and say, what do you want? Because normally what we do is, what do you call it? We just start doing things and they are tagging along. You know what I'm trying to say?
I think what was important to me was I didn't want them to endure their process to marriage. I wanted them to experience the process to marriage. And once I explained every step of the way, both sides says, we want it. We want to experience it. So we did it, and I also did it in a way that was culture. So for example, the kitchen party as well, I did it in a way that was a blend of mixture of their world, my world, their grandmother's world, that richness of culture.
Okay.
For me.
That's interesting. So to make it happen, the way you're explaining it, a blend of their world, your world, the grandmother's world, and all these worlds that we have around us. How did you navigate that? You engaged, you involved people, you consulted. How did you do it? And how did your daughter, the process, how did you work the process with your daughter?
For me, it was more communication. It was, you want a kitchen party, this is what it's going to look like. How I build it with my friends, who's helping me, has got nothing to do with you. But this is what we're going to do. At every stage, this is what this means. This is what the other side need to do. So I think when you are more, I would say my girls, I could put my hands up, genuinely enjoyed their whole process because they were involved. There was nothing that happened on the day that was a surprise to them. There was nothing on the day that they felt a little bit uncomfortable. I've lived long enough in that world to understand what their world looks like. So it was that blend, the richness of that blend. So in saying all of this, by the way, I'm not saying that those who go full shebang in their way, don't consult their children, are wrong. I'm just saying that's what worked for me.
Okay. So in other words, just do what works for you. And if I hear you, Miss Leah, what you are saying is all this depends on the relationship you have with your child.
Exactly.
Okay. Because the opposite is also true. She may say no, she wants to do it her way, right?
Are you okay with that? I would have been absolutely okay. I would have been less broke. Had she said, I don't want any visit, I would have been less. I would have been, I'm at peace. I'm at peace. That. You don't want to do it? That's fine, my dear.
I like that. I would have been less broke. Huh?
I would have been less broke. So I think as generally, I think my advice to people, if they ask me, is to say, put the child at the center. So that when they're talking about their experience and their road to marriage, they're proud. They're not feeling like this. I didn't like this. I was embarrassed with this. I didn't know this was happening. This one said this. Put them in the center. It's their journey towards the union, you know?
You see, the reason I thought of throwing that in, it's the conflicts that go on about this, you know, and the tension that goes on in people's hearts. And, you know, and our kids know us well enough to say, if I ask this, if I say this, mom and dad are going to respond a certain way. So they're trying to be very careful.
I'll give you another example. Yeah, I'll just say it. I'm quite radical. I didn't have a committee.
Okay.
I've got enough people who are in my world, who are my children's world. And if people said, I'm going to help you. So we all know if our friend is having a marriage, you know, we need to support. And if we'll support the level that we can. I didn't want to put pressure on people to say, give me X amount of money. Because I think for me, I know myself. I know the challenges of that's where sometimes those tensions and expectations come from. I'll build or give you a kitchen party that I can afford with friends who are helping me. Thank you. People gave gifts, but there will be no expectations from me because it's that kind of noise that I was trying to avoid. You know, once you start, the more voices you put around, the more tension you have. Then your child's voice becomes smaller, you know? Why aren't you doing this? What? And then why is she saying this is not what we do? Because there's so much voices. I'm not saying that committees are wrong. I'm saying it didn't work for me. I just know how I'm wired, and I wanted something where my child's voice was louder.
I like that, where my child's voice was louder, because what we tend to do is, you know, suppress them and make it about us, the parents, right? Yeah, typical African way of approaching things and stuff like that. So it's very important to know or to involve, to engage, to have a conversation, to know what your child wants, right?
It's them getting married. That's what we need to put them back in the right place. It's not us, you know. And sometimes as parents, African parents, listen to me, I'm loving you here. We want to do a do-over through our children. Our time is gone 30 years ago. This is not my do. This is not my gig. What do you want? I'll help you.
I like that. I like that. All right, let's move on. To what extent, in your view, should the two spouses have their cultural influence in their wedding and marriage life? How did that go?
We had to. Do you know what I also learned? I'm also learning from the girls their way in how they were so intentional in how they were building, because one's married to Zimbabwean, one's married to Scottish Welsh boy.
Okay.
But how they were building their marriage and how they wanted their culture to be imprinted was so intentional. So that it by default, that's what I did for me. What are we doing? What tradition do you want to bring in? From the Kaonde, his Kaonde, what Kaondes are we bringing? What Nsenga are we bringing? But when you live this way, I just think all of it becomes one Zambia, one nation, to be really honest. So there's nothing that's really different, I think. So for the youngest one, for example, all the African uncles wore kilts. They wore Scottish kilts. And then all the Scottish uncles all the Scottish people wore African print. So we kind of swapped the tradition. So it's really how, for me, I think when I'm here, I never look at somebody and say, are you Nsenga, are you Bemba, are you, because we are so little, everybody becomes just one Zambia, one nation. And when you look at the traditions that we're doing, they're all Changanya, So I was intentional, but I don't think it wasn't a big deal. If he'd said we want all of it Kaonde, I wouldn't have minded. If I'd said all of it in Senga, whatever that Senga looks like, I don't think he would have minded. But I think what we've built, that's another culture, isn't it? We talk about being Zambian, but the cultures that you have in the United States, United Kingdom, is diluted. It's what we have made with everybody who's around, because nobody's pure tribe.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's take a break and we'll continue the conversation.
Are you ready for the third annual Gala Dinner? The Association of Zambians in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia will this year host the third annual Gala Dinner on August 24th, 2024. There will be lots of exciting entertainment and we're expecting high-profile special guests. Be sure to stay glued to AZDMV Facebook page for more information. Save the date.
My guest is Leah Chilengwe. She's an ordained minister, author, a mother-in-law. I like that part.
I am she.
She has two sons in love, and
yes,
from different worlds. And she's an author. She's written 2 books. One is on the way. I have one. I actually wanted to show the book about All Grown Up to everybody. If you want a copy or you want to get in touch with Miss Leah, that's her email address, and she can help you navigate some of life issues. She actually runs a ministry organizations called Life with Leah. So that's we'll probably get to talk about that at the end of our conversation. So Zimbabwe and Scottish. What an interesting
mix.
What an interesting mix. How did the journey or how did the process look like with your Zimbabwean neighbor, son-in-law?
Very different. Very different. I think, and I touch on this in the third book, where there's an assumption that because you look alike in your the shell looks alike in your sim. But they're godly people. They're wonderful people. So even though it was different, I think it was easier with the Scots because there was that bit of the richness of culture that they wanted to embrace. But with the Zimbabweans, there's already established culture. So it's that navigation of how do we navigate this without the other side feeling like we've dishonored.
Dominated, yeah.
Yes, like we've dominated. So that was more interesting. Whereas the Scots side, because we have more dominant culture, they were like, we want to embrace it. And we took some of their food in terms of the Scots in the menu, so incorporated that. But with the Zimbabweans, like any other African, everybody's so strong in culture. So it's a case of navigating and making sure that you land where you negotiate so that it doesn't look like there's a takeover.
That's very important. So how did that not happen, the takeover? What is the important ingredient not to have one side feeling like the other side is taking over?
What I loved about the Zimbabweans was their recognition that they were coming to us to take our prized possession. And so for them, it was a case of tell us where to jump, and then we'll be like, how high? So that the coming together was our side, where we were like, we can easily make this a Zambian thing just because they've said this, but we need to be able to meet in the middle. So I think they were very aware, which is very culturally, they're coming to us. Whereas sometimes I think in Zambia, they'll be like the man's side, but they were like, no, we're coming to you. Tell us what you want us to do.
Interesting. But obviously you didn't dominate, right?
I tried. No, I didn't. I did. I had the Holy Spirit in terms of my husband, Nelson.
Oh my goodness. I think I got you there. You did. Oh my goodness. You are an ordained minister. You are a pastor. You've served in several capacities in church and in ministry. The way things are looking in church now, generally, it's not good on a global level. Okay. Talk about the United States, where I am, all these scandals that just came up in Africa, in Zambia in particular, with the papas and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what is happening in England on your side. Those of us raising children in church, to what extent should we let our children be engaged, influenced by the church environment?
I think it's hard. When you take your child to church, you're essentially saying, this is your family. Right? So when everything's going well, we're allowing our children to be immersed in the joy and the culture and the celebration of what church is. And then when there's dysfunction in the church, we're like, oh, don't get engaged. This has got nothing to do with you. Touch not my anointed. I think there's a bit of hypocrisy. I think what we have, we are Gen X. What I notice is millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Alphas are still sucking their thumbs, so they don't really know what's going on. But the millennials are very black and white. You know, it's either right or wrong. The Gen Zs are quite emotional. They want a mommy. They want to feel well. They want, you know, so that's how the different generations are. So once you take a millennial child, the 20-somethings, early 30s to church, and then something like that happens, I think it's a bit disingenuous of us to say, don't get involved in that, because the Bible says don't touch it. You have to be able to talk about the difficult situations that are happening, and also hearing it from their side that helps us navigate those emotions. You cannot turn a blind eye with what's happening right now in the church. And if we bury our heads in the sand, we'll lose our children in the church. I would sit down. My second book is loosely based on what me and my children went through in the church, where there was this dysfunction at the very highest level when George Floyd died, but we had left 2 years before. But even before, I would teach my children, you know, you honor the leader, but you also recognize when it's wrong. It's the same thing in our families. Like, yes, you would say it's impossible to say when you see your dad is moving shady, to put your head down and say, no, I'm not supposed to say anything, you know? And we live in a...
Here is the thing, Maria. Here's the thing, that aspect of church, and when it comes to the leadership, the man of God, the prophet, the whatever, the easy part is the honor part, to respect, to honor, to give where whatever is due to them. The difficult part becomes when there is a problem, when there is a dysfunction. Most of us do not know how to navigate that part. And what we do is we just leave.
My children taught me this thing. And this is where the definition, what is the definition of what honor means? Honor doesn't mean you're muzzled. That's not what dishonor means. My girls will sit me down and say, Mom, when you do this, it really hurts my feelings. It was really difficult for me to kind of digest that. I'm a mom. Dad, when you do this, I don't know why you keep doing this. It hurts my feelings. So for me, when you extrapolate that into the church, why is it difficult when somebody in the pews says, Dad, what you've done there has confused me? Because everybody else will come and say you're dishonoring. And I think let's get back to the definition of what honor and dishonor means. Let's get back to that definition. What does honor and dishonor mean? Once we get that navigation of, if we are allowed to speak things through, without being muzzled, people won't leave. People won't leave. But because the minute people speak, it's almost like you're judging. Don't touch this. But why is there a different standard in the pulpit than it is in the pew? Would be my question. And also, there should be a higher standard in the pulpit. That doesn't mean we throw stones. There should be a higher standard. But we are not allowed to talk about that higher standard in that pulpit.
It's this thing of saying you cannot rebuke an elder. Touch not the Lord's anointed. Where have we gone wrong with those scriptures? What have we done? What do we mean?
We have made up the, and I'm putting myself in there. So people, if your pastor, don't come and tell me she's this wrong. They've made us deputy Jesus, and sometimes we make Jesus deputy because of this elevation to a point where it's so dysfunctional. Are my children dishonoring me when they sit down and they say to me, Mom, when you do this, you hurt me. Dad, when you do this, you hurt me. In the church, it is impossible to speak up that you're hurt, because the minute you say you're hurt, you're dishonoring the man of God.
Yeah. So you went through a very difficult season. You served at a particular church, and you had to step away. How did you navigate that from the family point of view? Because you see, these are the things that happen, and when we are going through these things, we tend to think, everybody watching, remember, this conversation is about family life. And our family lives have many aspects to it. And the reason I wanted to bring up this church life thing is because of the way it is. Families are hurting. People are walking away from church, Miss Leah, and they don't want to have anything to do with church.
So people are disappointed at the pulpit. We were thrones chucked out with our family out of a church that we knew for 20 years. Because all I said was, come on, we are hurting people. Time out, we're hurting people. And everybody rallied around the man of God. I was a woman of God, but I'd like to think I'm a woman of God. But everybody rallied around to a point where even when they saw that he was wrong, his wrongs were not, they didn't matter. We were collateral damage. And this is what I told my girls, and they'll tell you this. For a year, the older one never went to church. And I understood why. For a year, the younger one, she's a worship leader. She sings a lot of songs. I'm plugging her now. Gastric Church, find her. But I found that she stopped singing. And then I asked myself, what have I done? And this is what I told them that we held on to. We had to go for therapy. We went ourselves to Christian therapists to talk our fears through. And the mantra I gave them in the 2 years we're in therapy was this: are you going to walk away from the God of the man because the man of God hurt you?
Wow.
Are you going to discard the God of the universe because the man of God hurt you? And that was something that we held on to, plus the fact that we had to unpack our emotions, the confusion. If there are families here who are going through something like that, get yourself a Christian therapist, because you will hear what your children are not really saying to you, because they can see that you are also going through turmoil.
Yeah.
So rather than pile it on dad or mom, I'm going to try and, for us to put everything on is what was our saving grace. They're both gladly in church, back in church, but the 2 years was hard. It was hard.
Have we, as clergy, failed the family unit? Has the clergy globally failed the family unit by focusing on politics, being money-driven, and the messages with a hidden agenda?
And power.
Yeah,
absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
The church has become so politicized, Miss Leah.
I have been to places where people have asked me to preach. Like my walk changes because there's just an elevation of a normal human being. You know, I always say, yes, people will say you're anointed, but I'm just a woman with a mouth that God says, you go and speak my word. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a vessel. But we have created this thing that makes me so high that it pushes me sometimes to perform. We are in the pulpit, whether we like it or not. We're human. The more you are elevated, the more you're forced to perform. You're laying hands left, right, and center. You've got no business laying hands on people. Sorry, but it's my observation. So there's a failure because the way we operate in the church is not the way we operate at a micro level in the family. And the church family is supposed to reflect the small family.
Yes. Yes.
Or the small family, whichever way it is. So I think, yes, there's been a failure. But I talk about this in the roundtables I was doing, and I say it is the interaction between the pulpit and the pew that has brought the dysfunction. The pew wants you to perform, and once you're up there, you also love the power. So that symbiotic relationship is growing and is bringing this thing where you cannot be rebuked. That when you are going a certain way, people can see you're sliding, but no, we'll explain it away until it becomes a scandal.
How did we find ourselves in that place?
I think we have taken, when I want to say kindly, rather than the world looking to the church to lead in culture, to lead in progress, to lead in structure, to lead in behavior, we look at the world. So we sound a lot more like the world. We dress a lot more like the world. You know what I mean? So in effect, what's happening in the world has got that celebrity culture, all those big stars that are there. We've taken that and adopted it into the church. Where's the servant leader? Where's the servant leader? To me, I know people who have done less scandals than some of the scandals I'm looking at, and they've been kicked out of the church. But there's a different standard, a lower standard, a lower threshold in the pulpit.
Wow. Miss Leah.
And I'm talking about myself. So there's any other ministers, please. I'm talking about myself too. I'm not pointing fingers. That's my observation when I hold the microphone. That's what I've learned.
Talk about your work as we wind up this conversation. My goodness, I wish we could just. I should have come up with more questions than I did. You do some work. What brought you to? You do some work. I want you to talk about your work, and everybody, if you want to get in touch with Miss Leah about what she does, you want to get her books, you want her to come and speak, that's her email right there.
So I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher. But the reason why I do Life with Leah is because I believe that growth is for everyone. It's just not for Christians. So I deliberately named it Life with Leah because the foundation of everything that I teach is through my experience, but also through my faith. So you will find people who come to my events will be Christians, non-Christians. It's teaching about how you navigate life. If I get somebody through coming to my teaching, finding Jesus because they're like, I want to live this life, then it's a bonus for me. But my job is just to sow the seed. So this year, I've been doing roundtable. I call them roundtable conferences where we sit down, and I call them metaphorical campfires. I don't have all the answers, but what I do is till the land and then ask the questions around family. What's the building blocks in the family? What's the dysfunction in the families? How can we bring ourselves back to building healthy boundaries? I talk about how we operate in the workspace. Are we wedded to our workspace? Are we slaves to our workforces? Who's your provision? Is it the job or is it God? I challenge that. And then I talk about the church. So this conversation we have, the dysfunction between the pulpit and the pew, that interaction, I talk about that as well. So I've been doing these. I went to Zambia. So I did one in Zambia in March. I did one in Birmingham. And how
did it go in Zambia?
Absolutely pain. People are in pain in the churches. That's what I can tell you. People are in pain in the churches. And so I'm going to go back because they've asked me to do a retreat. They're in pain. These same things where the hurt in the church is so big, but it's become so dysfunctional that you cannot even speak up. You don't want to leave. People don't want to leave, but that becomes their only option, stepping away from a family that they want. So yeah, I did Zambia, I did Birmingham. I've just finished New York, and I'm going to end the year with London.
Okay.
So I don't know what the Lord is giving me for 2025, but I've had people asking me to go and speak in their spaces. So I'm happy to come if they need me. But it's very interesting. So I'm not a woman with the answers. I'm the woman who navigates and structures and helps us land somewhere, because the answers are all bespoke to people. They're not bespoke. They're individual to people.
Miss Leah, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you. We can go forever. We debate. I'm like, I don't agree. I don't agree.
What we should do is record some of our phone conversations, right? So. We need to do that so that the people see the way it goes between you and me.
Do you know why it works? You're a humble man, and you know why you also rebuke me without rebuking me. Do you know what I mean? You because I think you know me well. You'll be like, So when you go, I go back and think, what did you say? So I think I take a second look, but I'll be like, I don't agree at all. So it's very funny. You indulge me, but also you grow me. So even though you think I don't hear, I hear your or your yeah, and I go and look again and say, what wasn't he saying when he made that sound?
You see, this is what people need to learn to do, like the way this conversation has gone. All right, I was asking you the questions. The thing is, when you and I speak, we don't always agree. You see, and I appreciate what you've said about me, because I also learn a lot from you. I mentioned to one of our friends, let me just mention her name. She won't mind. Yeah. You see, when you and I were talking that day, Matilda also called me.
Yes, I love Matilda.
Then I told her and I said, guess what? I'm working on something with Leah. Then you know what she did? She said, she was like, whoa, I can imagine how that is going to go.
I love Matilda. I love her. I love her. I love her.
So thank you for doing this.
No, thank you.
I do not take it lightly. And please let me know when the third book comes out.
Will do.
And then we can talk about it and let everybody know. Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. That was our show with Leah Chilengwe, Family Life. A conversation with Leah about family life. Please follow us on social media, ZBTR TV. And that's where you'll find us, Facebook, on X, and on YouTube as well. Subscribe to our channels so that when we go live, you don't need to say, oh, I missed the show, so that you'll be able to know that we're there. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.